Hello, my name is Ryan Bixel, and I would like to discuss the freedom of press, in particular that of Pakistan. I would like to give a brief history of printing and press, followed by freedom of press, and then I'll get a little bit more into Pakistan itself. So, the rise of knowledge, really pivotal point in human history is the invention of the Gutenberg printing press in 1440. It made education available to common people and it enabled populations to share ideas and information that before had been really difficult due to the expensive nature of books and the fact that everything that had been distributed had to be handwritten. About 60 years after the implementation of the Gutenberg printing press, Pope Alexander the Sixth issued one of the first suppressatory acts against printing, saying that all publications had to pass the church's approval prior to mass production. Now, as the world grew more liberal and democratic in their ideals, countries began to institute laws that either helped or hindered the sharing of information and knowledge. Sweden in 1776 enacted one of the earliest recorded laws to preserve the freedom of press, shortly thereafter followed by the United States. In fact, in 1791, the Bill of Rights declared that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. The example of the United States Constitution became a blueprint for which many democratic countries were able to establish their own democratic system of law. Now, as we come to Pakistan, nowadays Pakistanis enjoy a significant measure of freedom of press, but they're still a little suppressed. They can, for the most part, report on any issue that they wish or any topic that they wish, but when it comes to the government or the military, there can be no negative news by the press, and they're very suppressed or very censored in that. In fact, the organization Reporters Without Borders has annually compiled a list that is known as the Press Freedom Index. This index reflects the degree of freedom that journalists, news organizations, and citizens enjoy in each country, and the efforts made by the authority of that country to respect the nature of journalistic freedom. As we see here on the graphic, our country of concern, Pakistan, has not been doing too well. They've fluctuated over the last decade or so, but last year they came in a very dismal 147 out of 180 countries listed. Despite despite the fact that they're not the worst country, journalists face a significant amount of danger in reporting in Pakistan and on matters in Pakistan. And this brings us to a man called Daniel Pearl. Who is Daniel Pearl, you might ask? Daniel Pearl was a journalist for the Wall Street Journal. He began working for the Journal in 1990 in Atlanta, then got located to Washington, D.C., and then to London, and finally to Paris, where he met his wife in 1999. In early 2000, Daniel Pearl and his wife, Marianne, relocated to Mumbai, India, after he was made the Southeast Asia Bureau Chief of the Wall Street Journal. Now, following the 9/11 attacks, Pearl and his wife made a trip to Karachi, Pakistan in January of 2002 to do a little investigative reporting on America's war on terrorism. On January 23rd, 2002, while he was traveling to what he thought would be an interview of a local Pakistani figure, he was at that location abducted by Pakistani militant group that eventually held him for 9 days. At first he was accused of being a spy, but later he was simply held for ransom as an American citizen. On February 1st, 2000, a video was made in which Pearl identifies himself as a Jew and an American citizen. He is then forced to condemn the American actions against terrorist groups, following which he was decapitated on film, and that film was distributed online and to media outlets. Now, although Pearl's death was not particularly unusual because many people had been killed by terrorist organizations, it was shocking to the world because Pearl was not a combatant or a militant, but he was a journalist. This was the beginning of a rise in civilian deaths as well as both foreign and domestic reporter deaths. The past 20 years in Pakistan has shown an alarming increase in the number of journalistic or media outlet deaths. In fact, 2015 showed a reported deaths of 112 journalists and media professionals, which was in fact a decrease from the year 2006, where 155 media people were killed. In response to these numbers, many organizations, both within and without Pakistan, have been working to petition the government for the security of media, saying things like journalism is not a crime, that people should be able to report freely without fear of intimidation or threat or restricted movement or violence. In 2013, the United Nations General Assembly began to work to pass a resolution that called members of the United Nations to ensure the protection of media workers through establishing and implementing an effective and efficient system that brings justice to those who violate the crime or who violate journalistic rights. Finally, during an interview with the Washington Post, the father of Daniel Pearl, Judea Pearl, commented on reporter killings. It may be that Daniel Pearl was a precedent in that aura of protection, and that aura of protection was broken. It was understood, even to extreme elements or extreme groups, that you didn't touch a journalist and that you will pay if you do, but that myth has been broken. Now they look at the journalist as an agent of the foreign body. And here we see on this final picture a number of people who had been killed in the pursuit of spreading information and spreading the cause of truth and freedom and people's rights. Now, Pakistan is still severely censored and severely limited in their ability to share ideas and to inform the public of events going on within their own country. But there is hope that one day the United Nations and other groups working with the Pakistani government will be able to push through some sort of legislation that will better protect these agents of knowledge and democracy. And here is my list of references. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope that this was somewhat informative for you.